Good afternoon, VR53. I hope everybody had a good lunch. It's not as sleepy as me. All right, so we're going to go over to records management, Department of the Navy training. Pardon that, CMT said I wasn't loud enough. All right, so there are a few slides that I will have to read verbatim because they are straight out of the manual. So an introduction to this, at its simplest, a record is anything, papers, memos, presentations, reports, books, maps, emails, photographs, or any other documentary materials that documents past, present, or future command operations. So the SecNav instruction 52.8, Department of Navy Records Management Program, is the instruction that dictates this for all of the Department of the Navy and Marine Corps. All right. So what do we all have at our desks? Computers. So records management has definitely changed a lot from when the time they wrote this CMT. As we can tell, how many people in the crowd have worn that uniform? Does anybody know what it is? Yeah, utilities. So managing records, regardless of their format, whether it be computer, paper, or calendar invites, is to assure the proper preservation throughout their life cycle as required by the SecNav Manual 5210.1. If you ever have any questions or concerns on whether something you're handling is a record or not a record, you can look that instruction up. It's in Quick Links under Department of Navy Issuances. Also, if you don't know, come and speak with myself, YN2 or YNC, or YNS Inquini, new check it. Is everybody listening? Nope. All right, true or false? A record is considered anything, papers, memos, presentations, reports, books, maps, emails, photographs, or documentary material that documents past, present, or future business. True. Right. Y'all be listening. All right, so identifying records and non-records. Proper records management begins with ensuring the creation of records sufficient to document the operations, policies, and transactions of the department and to provide information necessary to protect the legal and financial rights of the government and persons directly affected by Department of Navy activity. So, as we discussed what records were, non-records. So, duplicate copies of an instruction. So, Department of Navy keeps all of their instructions recorded online. So, if you print off a document or an instruction that's not classified or anything of that nature, it's not considered a record. So it can be used as necessary. So working files. If you're jotting down paperwork on your desk or taking care of writing down notes for what you're working on, it's not considered a record until it contains business to official duties, such as the plan of the month or the flight schedule, because it contains flight information. Personal papers, such as if you're sitting at your desk doing your taxes, which is coming up here shortly. CFS is when are W-2s available? When are W-2s available? Yeah, what they said. Okay. So that's not considered a record. That's a personal file. However, I would advise not to leave that on your desk. So U.S. Code 44, Section 331 actually gives the legal definition of a record. We're not going to go through this word for word because it's the same as they did in the instruction. All right, so records contain information developed in preparing briefing papers, reports, and studies. So the debrief that we're doing tomorrow, that's considered a record. Provide data on Navy and Marine Corps programs, policies, and essential activities. A record can contain unclassified documents as well as classified information. Sorry about that. So, a non-record is documentary material that does not meet the definition of a record and is usually maintained for reference purposes only. Examples of non-records to include stocks, publications, other copies of libraries and museum reference material, catalogs, journals, and which one of these is a record? So, Photograph taken by LS1 identifying the damage on the duty band. Is that a record? Yeah. Duplicate copy of the SecNav instruction 5210 in my office. No. Email documenting the commanding officer's approval of a new pilot. And CMC's calendar schedule. That is a record. All right. So, diving a little deeper into some YN stuff. Standard subject identification code. So all the documents you see coming back from admin, they got a little 4-digit code on the top. Does anybody ever pay attention to those? No. So when you come upstairs and you ask, hey, where's the designation letter you gave me 2 years ago for CFS? Right? That's going to have a little 4-digit code, and as long as we store records appropriately according to SecNav Manual 5210.8, we'll be able to locate that file for you immediately. And SSIC is just a 4 to 5 digit number. Please ignore that error. The subject of the document, SSICs are required for all Navy letters, messages, directives, and forms, and provided a tested method for filing and consistently retrieving a message. These are your 13 SSICs. So, general, military personnel, 1,000 and above. 2,000 is information and technology. 3,000 operations, 4,000 logistics, and it continues on. We'll never see 13,000 at our command. So this is how we break down when you see, it breaks down, so the 4 different digits. So each one has a different title. This is straight out of the instruction on how they break them down. And it's just utilized for finding records. Right. So in conclusion, records include recorded information, regardless of form or characteristics, made or received by a federal agency under federal law or in connection with the transition of public business and preserved appropriate for preservation by that agency. Non-record materials are federal-owned information materials that do not meet the criteria of the above and include extra or convenience copies of federal records. So personal properties, personal papers, also known as personal files, or documented materials belonging to an individual that are not used under current agency business. Personal files are excluded from the definition of federal records and are not owned by the government. So, as I stated before, if you ever have any concerns and questions on if a document is in fact a record and you're supposed to be maintaining it, come up to admin, we'll let you know whether it is or isn't, and that way we'll make sure that if, for our next CA inspection, we're not scrambling for designation letters. That's all I got.